Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing tabletop games with friends and families can create. Today we'll be looking at Cy Borg. Now, this is using the mechanics of Borg, but in a sci-fi universe. Kindly provided to us by Free League Publishing. You know, I really do love Borg, and it'll be interesting to see how this applies the sci-fi. Now, if you watched my overview of Borg, a lot of the mechanics are the same. I'll kind of gloss over the things that are similar and kind of focuses on what is unique to Cy Borg. Cy Borg, I noticed it seems to go even further into the ability to randomize and basically, essentially procedurally generate a story and a world. You can roll for pretty much anything, and it's all basically just there to help you build a story. This is something that was also in Borg. Basically, you can roll for various characters you can encounter. You can roll for looting, and usually looting has almost as much chance of bad things as good. But what's interesting about the Cy Borg looting system is a lot of it gives the potential to have a whole story based off of something you randomly looted off a body, like the stolen data. You know, it could be just something you have to sell to a data broker. It could be some evidence against the CEO. It's all up to the die roll. Or DM's discretion, whichever the DM prefers. Most of these infestations are basically double-edged swords. You know, you get some cool power, but you also get some potential penalty. Such as this bloody cred chip that starts growing tentacles and tries to choke you out, but if you manage to overpower it, you now can manifest tentacles at will. One of the other cool mechanics that I do like that they've added is weather. If you're not terribly careful with environmental storytelling, it's easy just to say, oh, it was a dark and rainy night every time. So it's nice to have like a system kind of to change that up and say, okay, today is dust storms. So this goes into a little bit of who made it, of course. You get a lot of cool stuff from Free League. I really do like them as an RPG company. So we got the overview of the world. Very, very short. Really, they're just giving you the bare bones to be able to create your own story. So yeah, here you go. You can go and read quite a bit about the various companies, various locations. So you have the physical location, and of course you have the net. The concept of the net in Cy Borg is essentially a mishmash of past, current, and future tech to make such a complex web of communication networks that delving too deep in it can cost you your mind. A deep dive into the webs can be fatal. This is a cool mechanic, similar to Borg, where Borg you can roll and it would progress you to the end of the planet. You have miserable headlines. So basically various events that are happening in the world that may or may not impact your players. And those events are generally fairly nasty, but they can range from wars breaking out, even nuclear bombs going off in town. You know, it's a living city, and you can set how frequently you want those events to happen based on how long you plan your campaign to be. So a short campaign, you might want frequent events, devastating wars going on all over the place, and all sorts of mayhem. So this gets more into the system. And I think that's what you're mainly here for. It does encourage you to break rules if you feel you need to. They built the RPG, but this is your campaign. You do what you want with it. Your goal is to make it fun. here we have the character creation, very similar to how they did it in Morkborg. You can pick classes, but that's very much an optional rule. It seems to want to encourage you to randomize your character. You randomize how much money you have, the possible gear you start with. On this D8 chart, you could just roll and have a hangover to start with. How you make your characters: you roll for your abilities, randomize your equipment, roll to see how much money you owe, because, of course, sci-fi, you gotta be deeply in debt. Roll for glitches, and glitches are actually good things. These are like powerful abilities that you can use a couple times a session. Roll for your hit points, which they don't give you much. And so these are the ability charts, same as Morkborg. You're gonna roll 3d6, and that'll determine where you are on this chart of 1 through 20. If you do not pick classes, you can roll 4d6 and drop the lowest on. You can roll 4d6 on 2 stats and drop the lowest dice. The other 2 you just roll 3d6. Okay, character classes. They give you some interesting options, but I'm not likely to use this in my campaign. I really kind of enjoyed the randomness of rolling for our characters and letting the dice decide who your character is. But if you're interested in pre-made or semi-pre-made characters, you can still kind of randomize within the class and build within the class. Oh yeah, this is another little element I like. You can this is an optional tables you can roll on, and I probably will do this in my games. You can roll on how your character dresses. You can go anything from new prep. There was corpse core, so go based on what you think that means. You know, O core is just basically, my understanding of that is basically has to do with a simplified coding program, so I'm not sure how that would apply to dress, but that's up to you. I am not that well versed in, tech, so maybe some other people know more about that than I do, but it seems like it's like an open to interpretation thing. You can roll for physical features, you can roll for wants, what makes your character unique and odd, and what your character really cares about, such as explosives. May seem like trivial things, but this really could go a long ways to inform your character and how your character behaves. Okay, roll for weapons you start with. Of course, it's mostly melee combat and guns. There's armor you can start with. So you roll for 2d6 times 10 to see how much money you start with. But later on, you're rolling 3d6 times 1,000 to show how much debt you have. So you are not starting in a good situation. And you can also roll to see who you owe money to. And I love this little element. After you decide who you owe money to, you roll to see how badly they want their cash back. And it said you roll a d6, and 1 through 6 is they want it back very much. So all sorts of equipment you can buy. So it gives you some basic equipment to start with that you can make available to your players. But it also gives you other services you can buy. Transportation, get a monthly pass, or just straight up buy a vehicle. And of course, that's early in the campaign, you're going to be one trip. And it's, that's kind of up to the player how much they want to nickel and dime their characters. Although, considering you could potentially start with as little as 20 credits, they might not be able to afford that, even just a basic transportation. I like this ad blocking. So another element, anything with an X on it is illegal, and you can be shot for having it. So you can be shot for blocking advertisements. That is, the advertisements that are going straight to your brain. Not preventing anybody else from seeing advertisements, just preventing yourself from seeing them. So, various weapons you can buy. You could start with a sniper rifle, which you'd be lucky, yeah, but if you don't start with it, you're not going to afford it anytime soon. and you can modify those weapons. So these are all the things you can buy to heal. So various tech you can buy. You can have anything from cyber claws to psionic blasters. Smart hair. I didn't see that one before. Change hairstyle at will. Not useful and very expensive, but cool. I mean, that's a lot of money to spend for something that's essentially cosmetic and not functional. And if you're lucky, you could also start with some of these random text. So you might start with something really cool or something really lousy. That might not seem fair, but it is kind of cool in that it does definitely inform how you play the game, and it does inform the story. So as long as the story is built around what you start with, it works really well. At least that's my experience from Morkborg. So if you're lucky enough to start with a deck, you can hack nearby objects, and these are the various tools you can use to hack. Basically, you can bypass locks, set off alarms as distractions, and things like that. Of course, nothing in these games comes free. Apps have a chance of failing if you fail badly, so roll a natural 1. You have some nasty things happen. You can get viruses, your deck could just straight up explode. I need to repeat, nothing is free in this game. Everything has side effects. Everything's have horrible things that can happen if things just don't go your way. Alien bacteria from asteroids and such, you could have some powers based on those. But then again, you have potential side effects from using those powers. Some of them are pretty devastating. Some of them are role-playing only, so such as alien crabs, which is insects crawling under your skin. Oh, actually, that is pretty bad because it leaves you shaky on the ground for several rounds. So glitches. This is the same as in Morkborg. They just renamed it to suit the theme. Abilities you can get and you can use between each rest, such as being able to just one time double your damage. Hit points are the same as Morkborg, where you could start with almost nothing because it's just your toughness. If you have a negative toughness and roll a d8, you could potentially start with 1 health. It will not let you start with less than a 1. You hit 0 health, you're battered, you have to roll for the results. If you ever go negative, you die. But unlike Morkborg, if you have enough money, death isn't permanent, you have a chance of being revived. Because the society takes care of people with money. Okay, combat. Largely similar to Morkborg once again. But they've added auto fire, since you have assault rifles. If you hit, you have a chance of hitting again, up to 3 times. The downside of auto fire is you use up ammo faster. At the end of combat, you have to roll to see if you have any ammo left in your magazine. They were very generous in that they allowed you to restore health at the end of combat, as long as you had a breather. Oddly out of character for these games. They also add these extra combat mechanics. Since you have guns, you can have mechanics for cover, aiming. Suppressive fire is kind of an interesting concept. It's basically you can use up a whole mag to reduce the defensive ability of your opponent. How time works is this is all pretty much the same as Morkborg as well. Leveling up, once again, same as Morkborg. You have a chance of getting extra HP, you have a chance of increasing your abilities, but you also have a small chance of decreasing your abilities. So leveling up is not 100% a good thing. And you got the stats for various enemies you can encounter, their HP, morale, so what they have to roll against to see if they stay in combat, if they're not doing well, kind of weapons and damage. Well, you can bribe them too, and how much that costs. Seems like money will be something you might be going through quickly if you're not combat heavy. exploded. So there are zombies in this game. For the most part, they're out of town. So I thought that was an odd addition, but I could see that working depending on an individual session. Combat vehicles. I think if you're gonna go up against combat vehicle, you're pretty much done. If you do survive long enough, you can actually rent your own combat vehicles, which of course then the DM could choose to throw in something like this mech to completely obliterate you. So again, getting at something good in this game just generally means something bad's gonna happen, or the DM has to throw something harder at you. Now, I mentioned that this is essentially allows you to procedurally generate your session, and this is how you would do it. You can roll for generating a mission. Who is your contact? Who is the mission for? What they're offering you, which could be nothing, which would definitely make sense if the person offering it was somebody you already owed money to, and they might be just saying, yeah, you do this and I don't break your legs and make you pay for your debt right now. And then you roll for what kind of job, and hope it's not an escort mission. And of course it does say early on is if you roll and it doesn't quite mesh, just re-roll. Where the mission is, what kind of location it is happening at, so you can luxury residence or offices, and what part of the city you're in, who your potential enemies might run into there, possible things that could happen. If you want to make your own corporations, they do provide plenty, but you could always customize them and make your own cults. All sorts of events that could happen. So if you don't have an idea of what's going on next, or you have a mission that's falling a bit flat, just roll on this table and spice things up quite a bit. You could just make people nervous by having a helicopter randomly investigating them. And then of course it gives you a scenario that you can play out. Don't want to spoil that in case your players are interested in that. That was the key elements of this book. There's certainly more if you're interested. My favorite part is this last page that basically is the entire rule set of the game, and I love that it's just that simple that you can have everything you need to know on one page. So that is Cy Borg. I don't like the theme quite as much as Mork Borg. I really do like the metal feel, but sci-fi is definitely in my wheelhouse. It's something I'd be interested to try out, and I'm generally not into like the really colorful stuff, but somehow in Mork Borg and the Cy Borg, it just feels right. This intense color somehow feels oppressive, and that's, I think, what they're trying to go for. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check us out on other social media such as Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to like and subscribe.